doctor at PhD, MN in electronic and electrical engineering with management from the University of Birmingham, and also holds an MBA from the University of Cambridge. And that is the crux of the matter. That is the main reason I'm interviewing record at that university, and he will be talking to us about it. He's happily married to Laide, and together they have a beautiful daughter, Dara. Good
brother, big brother Bob D, how are you? Bob D, would you indulge me, please? You know, I've worked in served is how I like to put it, actually, in a Christian organization for the last about 20 years now. It's very unusual. As we begin, okay, for all he's doing, thank you for his life, thank you for my life. We just pray, Lord, that everything we do tonight, everything we say will be such as to encourage those who, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for your prayer.
Thank you. I feel like I'm in church now. We've had worship, now we've said opening prayer.
It's been answered. So could you kindly give us an introduction? The usual thing we start with is, who is AYOBAMI OLUNLOYO? Feel free, don't be in a rush. We have all the time in the world. Thank you.
Wow, that's a big question. As a gentleman, born into a family that I love very much. Says, you know, I've learned a lot from him too. Yeah. So and of the word, you put things where they're supposed to be, you know, pack things properly, and you know, that sort of thing. You know, I'm very finicky with things sometimes, you know, and I think I got that from my mom. But my sense of integrity, and which is something I hold very dearly. One of the youngest, maybe you want to prompt me a bit more, but I like to think of myself in simple terms, really. So I don't want to go into anything you haven't asked.
Okay. Yes, definitely. I will ask plenty. So let's go into the history of the OLUNLOYO family. It's such a legendary family from Ibadan. And especially your accomplishments in the area of the OLUNLOYOs are known to be geniuses. As I wrote Instagram this afternoon, you have it in your DNA. If you say you're an OLUNLOYO and you are not brilliant at primary school, and you've sustained it.
Well, Bob D, you know, to be honest, if I'm going to talk about the word genius, there is no such word unless you include, first of all, the word God. Abundant, you know, through my life, you know, that would have shown up in the way of opportunity. It would have shown up in the way of chances in life and things like that. So before I say anything else, you know, it's really important to just say that there is nothing that I have own, or there is nothing in my brain. Primary school, I always had a sort of inkling feeling of wanting to academic achievement. As you know, you always from primary school. You know, I've always wanted to. Yeah. Then I went to secondary school. Actually, I was secondary school. Then I love them all. You know, so that was a great set. And yeah, that was God take control. By God's grace, I had a great result in SSC as well, which was really, actually, I came to England, went to where I did my first degree in engineering, electronic and electrical engineering. And then many years later, and there's a story about that gap, actually, which, you know, I'd love to tell you. Many years later, I went to Cambridge to do my MBA. So, yeah. It was connected. You know, it was a really great opportunity to go there. And academically, you know, it was challenging. You know, you needed to with. I will never forget people like Bumisho Ande and Yomi Jemibemo and Godfrey Boyne and people like that who, they really kept you on your toes, and so you needed to achieve. Mathematics was a competition, actually. We were trying to compete to see who would, I think of mathematics like war. Really, it's two things. It's strategy, which is accuracy, and speed. So they're trying to make the best grade and that sort of thing. So, but those days were fun. They were fun. It was also a fun school. A lot of growing up, formative years, Manowar and Jos and things like that. These were things that really built us as citizens of Nigeria, and potentially, next, future, citizens in the nation. Yeah.
I hated mathematics, but I used to sit down with your dad. I was a young reporter, and he'll be teaching me principles of mathematics, but I was never interested. You learn under his tutelage at the time.
Mathematics, I had to love it. They just didn't go away. So I could be. I told this story to my school friends, and I just say about and they will probably be laughing right now. But I could be in the car with my dad, right? And we're driving. In those days, Dad is 85 now, but in those days, in his maybe 50s and a bit in that age range, yeah. We'll be driving, I'll be sitting next to him maybe, and he'll see a number plate, in front, in the car in front, and he would say, factorize that number. And he wanted me to break the number down to its constituent parts in terms of factors, and I had to do that in my head right away. And then, if I didn't get it, he would show me, okay, well, you could have seen that, there are 3 2s in there, 2 3s, and so on and so forth, and break the number down. So this is how you kind of grew up. You are kept on your toes, trying to, play with numbers. But the truth of the matter is, as time went on, it became fun. We were looking for ways to do new things with numbers, like shortcuts and secrets to time. Siblings, they had it worse. They had all these big books, Durrell and all these things that they had to go through. So yeah, but it was fun.
So, and how well do you do in mathematics?
Well, this is a very interesting question. Whenever I failed a subject, by God's grace, the one subject I didn't fail, and I think I got an A right through in both pure maths and further maths, and then A levels in Croydon, A as well. And so every time I've taken a mathematics exam, by God's grace, I've had an A. Yeah. Well, but that implies that there were other things I didn't get an A. But I will come to that. Yeah. But for me, Bobby, what it is, right, is that even if you didn't get an A in something else, the thing that makes you feel better growing up where I came, in my dad's, under my dad's tutelage, is at least you brought up you.
As one of the most times after going up of the balcony to have our ongwongwo and our red one. So tell us, growing up in that environment, how was
Nigeria to visit my dad? The library is one of my dad's most prized possessions. It's it really is a sight to behold. He has books going back probably centuries. When I say older, like double my age type thing, and that's nearly 100 years. And so on and so forth, So he's very much into his books. He's people know him probably as a politician, but before that, in the depth of further down in the age category relative to my siblings. So for me, these were big books in those days, So when I read anything, maybe Dad pulled something out. It's only in later life that when I go, he shows me this, he shows me that, and then maybe I take some of them away. Actually, when I was doing my research on corruption or more books on corruption in Nigeria, and shipped them over to me, in the UK, for my research. And so yeah, the library is, and it's not just a book library, it's also a music library. He's got things like the complete works of Mozart, complete Shakespeare, complete Beethoven, and a very extensive library, and something that we really need to do well to protect.
Okay. Can we speak about your favorite subjects? Let's start from secondary school this time.
I was always leaning towards the sciences, mathematics, physics, chemistry, the engineering path. These were always sort of my favorites. Maybe those influences came from my dad, because he's an engineer as well. But I remember the first time he and I, sort of took different paths in academia, actually. He suggested that I do radio was because he thought that civil engineering, it's more lucrative, especially in Nigeria at the time, especially. But I was convicted by the fact that I wanted to do what I was interested in. And what I was interested in, I was always breaking open the VCR. So in the days of VHS and all that, those things get dirty, the head gets dirty and stuff like that. Somebody has to open it up, clean it and all that. So I was always messing about with things like that. And essentially, I had a deep interest in electronics. And so that's where, I thought, I'm not going to do civil because I don't really like that. I'm not interested in building roads and bridges. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I remember that. So it wasn't so much of a disagreement, but, you probably had it look like, are you really sure that this is what you want to do kind of thing? And so I went that way. And so physics, chemistry, I hated biology, actually. I think in my places in this, where Bumi was at some point, and we sort of petitioned to drop biology because we just didn't like it. And so my dad happened to come to the school, actually. And he actually, he said something, I think, to the principal, Miss Howard, she's in Scotland, lovely Scottish lady who was our principal. And I think he said something along the lines of, if these guys want to go into engineering, and all that, they don't need biology. Biology is not necessary. And so this is how we ran away from biology. I kept that going. So when I did A-levels, I did mathematics, physics, and chemistry as well. And then I went into Birmingham to do engineering. So, yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't go to GCI. What happened?
That is a funny phenomenon. As you know, and I'm sure the reason you're asking this, Bob D, is that every single male in your lawyer family, dad down, my big brother Benga, my brother Shola, all went to GCI. In fact, my younger brother, my brother Tayo, he went to command, and I went to Adeswe. So, yeah. But you know what, Bob D, the reason for that, actually, I come to think about it, is that my dad always looked for, when he went there, one of the best schools in the country. And when my older brothers went there, still relatively a great school. But this starts to, lead us into the state of education in Nigeria, which is something that I'm deeply passionate about. And I suppose maybe the reason my dad didn't send me to GCA at the time was probably because it wasn't, God makes his own way. So this is where I found myself.
I haven't missed or lost anything. Okay, let's talk briefly before we come to your adult life. Let's talk about growing up with music in Ibadan. So what was it like in your home?
Oh, wow. Music back home. This story will crystallize the moment I transitioned from that time when I was growing up, and then I went to boarding school in Adesoi. This is when I started realizing, actually, there were other things apart from classical and jazz, So my dad is a classical music enthusiast. He was, by God's grace, he was a president of the Classical Music Society at the University of St. Andrews when he was there in Scotland. And this is not a position I think you attain without knowing your stuff, So it was always there, you were always humming Mozart or Beethoven or something else, And so, like they say, when, you play music to babies in the womb, they recognize it and all that. So if our home was saturated with classical, the other thing he loved as well, he loves his hymns. So on a Sunday morning at home, there will be hymns blasting right through the house. Handel's Messiah, Handel's Water Music, those sort of pieces. So these were the sort of, and then the exposure to what else was out there, started R&B and all sorts of music that maybe I hadn't gotten too much into before school, but then started getting more into, and jazz is that where we kind of grew up with Stan Getz and people like that, who Latin jazz. These were things that you would regularly hear at home. So it was really, 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 really exciting. Yeah. So and then obviously, that was the odd KSA and Fela and things like that, which were in those days. Fela's music, typically has a message. That's why I like it. When he's being, not so, when he's being a bit vulgar or anything, it's not so desirable. But the message, many of them political messages behind what he sang, were powerful, as you know.
Wow. Wonderful. Now, could you discuss in detail some of the classicals that you enjoyed growing up?
You're putting me on the spot now. So I'm not Dad. So he's not. Right off the bat, the piece that I would gravitate to, if they said to me, like my dad was saying the other day, one piece of classical music, if it was on a desert island, I think it would be Mozart K525. That's the one that goes doom 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 doom. Yeah, Mozart K525. You've got it.
We've got it. We were ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Bob D, I'm sure. Are you a Mozart fan?
Oh, of course. We all grew up. I was a book man, but I had people around me who influenced. Yeah.
You just took me back 30 years to being a kid at home.
Wow. Did you ever enjoy any Beethoven?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Did you ever enjoy Beethoven?
Beethoven, yeah. Beethoven. You don't put me on the spot, though. I may not remember any specific pieces, but yeah, Beethoven was always a favorite. Beethoven, Mozart, Haydn, Tchaikovsky, these were some of the most notable Bach composers that Dad absolutely loves. So, when he's playing these things, you're just there, you're just sipping them in, and it's only when you hear something, or you might even hear something on the back of a TV advert, and then it takes you back home, and you think, wow, that's what I grew up with. So, yeah.
Which was hymn, George?
My favorite hymn? Oh, my own favorite hymn, In Christ Alone. I love the hymn In Christ Alone. That's my absolute favorite. That's the one you were playing at the start. Yeah. Are you playing it again?
I said, do you remember any other hymn that you loved growing up?
Oh, wow. Growing up, favorite hymns. Let me see. When you're on the spot, your mind just goes blank.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring something back now.
But did you attend? Was it Methodist or Anglican? Which of the churches?
Church?
Yes.
Well, in Ibadan, yeah, and that's an Anglican church. So in the very early years, that's where I was in church, and but then I came to England, and I actually gave my life to Christ in England, and many years ago. It was actually on the 14th of January, 1996. I remember I was in Croydon. I mean, I've always had a relationship of some sort, I believe with God, but the day that I said a prayer and said, "Listen, I'm committing my life," that was that day. Yeah, that was January 14th. That is actually my niece Fonola's birthday. Yeah, 14th of January helps me to remember it. Yeah.
Yes, before we continue, we'll give you a Beethoven as an icing on the cake, the Ninth Symphony.
Ninth Symphony. Oh yeah, that's a popular one. Bob D, you are really, taking me back to deep memories there.
Yeah, we celebrate good people on this program. Yeah. So very, very relaxed. Okay, another thing I know about your dad, he's a good connoisseur of wines. So
wine, yeah.
Yeah, take after him in matters of wine.
Yeah, my dad has been collecting wines for a very long time, and he's and I think I have a little part to play in this his journey. There are two books that every year, whichever one of us, the kids that are in England, have to buy for the library. One of them is the Whitaker's Almanac. It's a volume that describes politics, business, all sorts of current affairs for the entire planet each year. And so my dad has one of those going back maybe 20 years for every year. You got to get them for the library. And the pocket wine book lists, wines that are coming into season, wines that are mature, becoming mature that year, and so on and so forth. And also wines that are good with different dishes, fish, wines that are good with meat, and so on and so forth. So I'm not so much into. I don't drink, so that's a personal conviction. But non-alcoholic wine is actually quite great. I discovered, but I don't drink alcohol. But my dad, it's not for him as well. It's not really about alcohol. It's about the exquisite nature of wine. Yeah.
But do you cook?
Do I cook? Absolutely, I cook. Yes, that I do. I do. In fact, you're gonna love this because my not so much interest, my need to cook was helped on by somebody who's very dear to you. So this is my sister. She's my really wife. So when I was in A levels in Croydon, and then I started living on my own for the first time, she was the one that led me and showed me what to do to mix this and mix that and be able to actually start cooking. And for those of my friends who went to Birmingham, they'll Abi Balogun, Bisola, did I just say Balogun? Sorry, that's a maiden name. But she was Balogun at the time. Abi Levi Beard, you ate all my food. So yeah, so it was a lovely friend of mine when University of Birmingham together. So yeah, cooking, I really love that. Even now, which we bond. So I love cooking. Yeah.
Your dad gave me all kinds of cases. The one I will always remember is wow, wow,
Yeah.
wow. And then as you and talk mathematics, before even on a program 2 weeks ago, he was trying to teach me physics and all that when we were talking Newton, every one of them.
Indeed.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so you migrated from Nigeria now to do levels in England. So let's start from there.
Oh yeah, so I came to England in 1995, and it was primarily I'd been in Nigeria for a year actually. You know, the schools were closed at the time. I wasn't able to get to university, and I probably would have been right, you know, on your footsteps because I had gotten admission to the University of Ife, but then the universities were closed, you know, for quite a while. You know, this were the days of the military dictatorship and all that, so I couldn't get in. So after about a year at home, I came to England, and by God's grace, you know, even that was just the grace of God and the opportunity to come here to study. And so I did my A levels. You know, the help of my aunt who lived in Croydon, my aunt Femi, Auntie Femi, and I stayed with her initially, and then I was in a foreign land, you know, completely new to this place, completely new to winter and things like that. And then, yeah, you know, I remember.
Then, so I was in exile.
Say again. I used to see you every weekend when I would come from Croydon to Beckton. Yeah. And we were in the same house. So yeah, really appreciate that. And you know, thank God Nigeria is a different place now, and I'm no longer in exile. But yeah. So yeah, I did my A levels at Croydon College, and after 2 years, I went to the University of Birmingham. Yeah, so that was great. And after a bit, staying with my aunt, and then you know, for the first time, I moved out at the age of 18 and started living on my own for the very first time in my life. You know, I had my own flat and all that. So that was a new experience that I had to sort of get used to. And this was the point I had to start cooking and doing all that. So yeah, Croydon was a great opportunity. And then you know, I applied to university. I applied to. This is a story you don't know. Shall I continue? Actually, I'll let you lead. You know,
feel free.
I applied to university. I applied to you know, at the time you would apply to 6 universities, and by God's grace, you know, I got offers to all 6 universities, and it was a great opportunity to study electrical and electronic engineering. I had predicted grades of 3 A's or 3 A's, you know, essentially, I believe it was. And all that led me to these 6 offers. A story that you know, because, you know, obviously that's why we're here. And so, believe it or not, at that stage of my life as an undergraduate, Cambridge was one of the universities I applied to. Because this was just, you know, it was expected. My dad encouraged me in that direction. You know, I sort of worked towards that. And so I got an offer from Cambridge at the time. I got an offer from Birmingham as well, and a few other universities like that, great schools. But I didn't go to Cambridge at that stage. And
wow.
At this point, I will defer to you to prompt. Because I don't want to lead you.
Cambridge.
Sorry, sir, I didn't hear that.
I said, why would you reject an offer from Cambridge when that's...
I actually didn't reject the offer. I didn't reject it. I actually didn't get in at that stage. That's what it was. So I was predicted 3 A's to go to Cambridge. Cambridge had given me an offer. I was scheduled to go to Modeling College, Cambridge. So this is where my romance, as you might call it, with Cambridge actually began. So, Bob D, you know, the story I want to tell you now is the story of how, and we've talked about mathematics and growing up in mathematics. One of the things I've found in my life is that the love of numbers and the love of mathematics is something that God has used to show me that He actually speaks to me through numbers. You know, so I understand what God is saying through numbers, and I'll tell you why that is. So basically, I applied to Cambridge. This was 1997, and I applied to Cambridge amongst other universities. But the university I really loved, I really enjoyed the campus and everything, was the University of Birmingham. It had a family feel. I loved that very much about it. The red brick.
Oh, we lost your voice there. Lost your voice. We can't hear you. Again, we've lost it.
One second.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
1 second. I think I know what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I know what happened. Sorry about that. I think, hey, funny enough, I think maybe the car picked up my Bluetooth or something. Okay, so yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, Birmingham was really, I'll go back. Birmingham was really the university I really loved. That's the one I really, really enjoyed. The red brick, the campus and everything. That was the university that was really the one that I enjoyed. But Cambridge, an offer from Cambridge, you didn't reject that. You had to take that up, Cambridge had given me a bursary. They'd done all these things. The college had been allocated, as I said, modeling and so on. But I didn't go there because I didn't make the grade, believe it or not. So despite being awarded, being predicted, I was predicted 3 A's. I actually didn't get 3 A's. I got 3 grades that I felt at the time, being not who I am today, I was much younger and all that. I got 3 grades that felt a bit embarrassing, compared to what I was expected to get and so on. So I got an A, a B, and a D. Now, can you hear me?
I'm hearing you.
Yeah. The D was in physics. Yeah. Wow. And in that course, I had been predicted an A.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, at the time, if you ask me what happened, I really couldn't explain it.
Would you say relaxed too much or something?
Maybe I did. And maybe that's the answer I would have given you in 1997 or 98 or 99. Maybe that's what I'm going to say. If you're predicted an A grade, by your school, because if you're applying to Cambridge, the school has to certify that you are possibly able to make the grade. So the college put forward to Cambridge that this person is predicted to get an A. And then I got a D. Now, it would be very many years till I actually understood, what had happened. And this is where the grace and the providence of God is really important. So the D was in physics, the B was in chemistry, and the A was in mathematics. So thank God for that. At the end of the day, I was quite pleased with that. Now, what happened, Bob D, is that as a result of that, I didn't go to Cambridge, and I ended up going to Birmingham, which, as I said to you, was the school. It was a bit of a challenge, I was down, I wouldn't say my parents were disappointed, but they had wished for something and it didn't happen. And then life moved on. I went to Birmingham. That was a great experience. Now, I have to tell you that I actually applied for Cambridge again later in life. I think, I can't remember now, maybe it was around 2005 or something. I was going to go there to do a full-time MBA. And guess what? Again, I didn't get in. Can you believe that? Yeah. And They didn't say much, they just said, but I realized that God had a hand in it because I applied for the full-time MBA, which was a very, very, would have been a very difficult course. Married, taking a whole year off, not earning a salary and all that. It was, I wanted to go back to have the whole campus experience and all that. But the age I was in life and the state I was in life, it wasn't realistic. So I think God just saved me from a bullet, because that was not really what I should have been doing at the time. Now, for those who talk about biblical numbers, and this is why I said, Bob D, that I feel God speaks to me in numbers. This is how I knew that this is what God was saying to me. They say 7 is the number of perfection. Bob D. And 3 is the number of the Trinity, right? 7 times 3 is 21. Yeah? 1997 was the first time I applied to Cambridge as an undergraduate. 1997 plus 21 years, Bob D, is 2018, which is the year I got into Cambridge.
Wow.
And that for me was a very clear as he wanted to do it. So I tell you something else. You know, this getting a D, that's what it took. That's what God had to do to ensure that I didn't go the way that man wanted to go, and I went the way he wanted me to go. And, you know, I'm sure you're going to ask this question later, but guess what, Bob D? But because I went to Birmingham, again, by God's grace, I had the huge privilege and the honor to be I had to get that D. In 1997, 98, it didn't make sense. You see, I had to get that D, being predicted an A, as I said, for that journey to be rerouted in the way that God wanted it to go.
It's as if you read what I wrote. If you look at what I put here, I said God find a different job and different routes for you.
Absolutely. God had a different journey in mind. And you see, the other thing about it is that, you know, there are people who maybe feel, I mean, I believe in high achievement. You know, do your best, always do the best you can. And that's always, you know, that's one of my life philosophies. But academic achievement in its own is not the all and all of it. Yes, do your best, but God has a greater plan, you know? So I was trying to get into Cambridge, and you know, did I get into Cambridge 21, 7 times 3 years later? I did, but that was when God had it in mind after all these other experiences that, you know, by his grace and privilege, you know, I was able to experience. You know, I suppose many people have met the Queen, but, you know, maybe it is a slightly, you know, again, by God's grace, unique category of people in the world. And I can say, you know, to God's glory that I'm one of them.
Okay. Now, let me also talk a bit about why I think the way you do. Because I had a similar experience. When I was going on exile, I was crying like a baby because I never found to live abroad. I found my way into the bush, Cotonou, and I had to find my way to England, where I lived for the next 3 years. Had I not gone on exile, there would be no ovation.
Indeed. Ovation was born in my brother's living room, right?
Pain of exile, and you want to give up.
Yeah.
But God has his own plans.
Absolutely.
I also I wanted to be a teacher and couldn't get a job as a teacher. That is what forced me into writing. I didn't know I was a writer. I didn't know I was a journalist. And I was to be a teacher, probably marry a teacher, and live happily thereafter.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Now,
and Bob D, sorry, my encouragement, right? Sorry, quickly, my encouragement is that, you know, people that want to achieve academically, you know, there's a necessity to understand that, you know, focus on God's plan, you know, because people might have not quite gotten what they wanted or achieved what they wanted, and I think some people, just in life, think that academics is everything, and it really isn't. You know, there is something greater, and that lies in God. Yeah. So thanks.
Good evening. How is South Africa tonight? How are you? Good to see you on the program. So we're being watched by a friend from South Africa. Yes. So your topic was based on what? And so
Oh yeah, interesting. So no, actually at the time I was president. I think in my first stint, my first experience of grassroots politics, I ran for the presidency of the Nigerian Students Association at the University of Birmingham, and by God's grace, I won that position. And At the time, it was the centenary anniversary of the University of Birmingham. The university was in 2000, 100 years old, and the Queen came to visit, and a number of students across the university were selected and to meet her on behalf of the student body. And I, as president of the Nigerian Students Association, which was a very vibrant association at the time, with a lot of my friends and colleagues who worked together to do some very interesting things. We launched them, and he came over to the school to launch. And so it was a very vibrant university across campus. And so we were invited. I was opportunity by God's grace. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Yes.
I was just saying, yeah, it was Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh as well. Yeah.
Okay, so after you left Birmingham, what happened? Okay, before you answer, I want to acknowledge a few of your friends. I think noticed and noted them. There is Abby Black Butter.
Oh, she's there, yeah.
Yeah. For us and giving us gist about your mean salad. So, hey,
what's that?
That's okay, I think, was talking about your mean salad, and Abby Black was talking about empty pots.
Yeah, I think she was part of it. She probably will deny it. But I had cooked a whole big pot of fried rice after like a whole day of school or anything. And whoever it was orchestrated themselves, and maybe I cooked it, I went away or something, and they ate the entire thing. They emptied it. They did not leave a single grain. And they left the pot.
They will confess.
They will have to confess what happened. Yeah.
No, maybe some witches and wizards decided to take the pot.
So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. School life. Yeah, so from there, what happened?
Yeah, so from Birmingham, I was headhunted by the Thales Group, which is a French engineering company, also based here in the UK. So I went to work for Thales Research in Reading, which is a Ministry of Defense contractor in the UK here. And it was RACO Research at the time, or it had just changed actually. So that was my first stint in engineering. And so I moved to a different part after about 7 months of the Thales Group, Thales Avionics in Rains Park in London. And that's where I began doing an operations control sort of role within the engineering department and helping to run the engineering department from that perspective. Not being so technical, but being more ensuring that projects were going as they should and working effectively, resource management, that sort of thing. So I worked with the Thales Group for quite a few years, about 6 years. And then after that, I went on to work with... in fact, I've got to tell you about my deep interest in, this is where multimedia, this whole multimedia side of my life got born. It really began with volunteering in Jesus House, my church here in London. And around 2000, I started sort of volunteering within the media team. Again, this is where Abby comes in. Abby, we've been together for a long time. So Abby, introduced me with someone else at the time to Jesus House. And so after university, I started attending Jesus House and started serving there. And it was there that, my interest in media was actually really exploded. I had done some playing around with PowerPoint and things like that at Birmingham. And as a matter of fact, the Nigerian Students Association won an award for Best Student Society doing a presentation that we did and all that. So that, kind of got me thinking, the power of using media to communicate and actually influence people. Bob D, I can see the smile on your face. That was when I realized that there's power in media and the fact that you can use media to influence. And so, the result of that is that a passion was born. I started volunteering at Jesus House. And before you knew it, that started growing. What was a projector and a screen and all that started becoming a lot more sophisticated with, mixers and all sorts of devices that we got. And, at this point, I really have to thank God for my pastor, my senior pastor. If you want to have a friend, brother, pastor, uncle, dad, guide and everything all rolled in one is Pastor Agu. And, an extreme.
I love my pastor.
Yeah, absolutely. an extreme visionary and just a great man of God. And the whole reason I mentioned that is because Pastor gave the opportunity for the media team to flourish. He set a vision, he encouraged things, and so on and so forth. All the way back to days in Finchley, when things were a lot smaller. We then started growing this thing. We were getting new equipment and all that, and those were opportunities that allowed us to test our skills and to build new things. But that desire and that passion that was growing separate to my professional life is what then led me, when I left Thales, to work for the first creative agency I worked for, which was the working in my passion. And when I did that for a few years, I then came to serve and to work at Jesus House, and that was in 2009. And I've been in Jesus House ever since. And by the grace of God, I serve there as the head of media, which also has a second side to it in my role as the technical production manager of the Festival of Life, which is the biggest Christian event, I understand, all-night Christian event in Europe. So, 40,000 seater event, and that's a big thing, managing a production that size and making sure that things work technically and working with contractors and volunteers and making sure it's all good. So these sort of things. So that's kind of been my journey. Yeah.
It is impossible to attend Jesus without notice AYOBAMI OLUNLOYO, because you're all over the place. I see you on the camera. So tell me a bit about what.
Well, it's really, I have to say that God has really been kind. I found my way into something that I really love. God sort of led me in that direction, and I found that doing media work I was very passionate about. I discovered the joys of video editing. For me, it's behind the throne, behind the idea of media. But also, one of the things that is very dear to me is excellence. I think excellence is important. I think to impact the world, there are two key things I feel that you can always use to impact the world. One is love, and the other is excellence. So I don't believe in doing things half measure. I think it's very important that in anything that's worth doing, this is a phrase that you would always learn. You always hear growing up, anything that's worth doing is worth doing well, and so on. And my dad always said something: act well your part. There the honor lies. Act well your part. There the honor lies. So I will never forget being in shorts, going back to Adesoye College. Those will be the last words you will hear before you got into the car. Act well your part. There the honor lies. So, these were very important things, and it's just so critical for me. I just can't survive not doing things properly, and so that extends to my passion for media. So I run, by God's grace, a team of about 50 or so volunteers across different spheres of media, cameras, projection, sound, lighting, stage management, CD, DVD production, all these sort of things. And we bring that together in the interest of the vision of Jesus House as a church, and Festival of Life as well. So it's a major operation. I wouldn't say it's a church like any church. Jesus House is an extremely busy church. It's by God's grace, we feel that God has given us a vision to be a governing church, with responsibility to set examples and to help other churches. That's part of the core vision of Jesus House, to be a church that supports other ministries and so on. So we and that vision sort of filters into the media team and all the other teams in the church. We have a responsibility to always try to do the best we can, and being able to provide the finances to do more and to buy more, and all these things are just by the grace of God. So, we do some pretty sophisticated work, even in terms of, we work with some of the best production companies in the United Kingdom. SFL Group, for example, as a company who is the official AV supplier to the Royal Albert Hall. So these are some of the people we work with, and some of my great friends there, Mark Payne, who was the former managing director, Tom Jeffries, Craig Lawrence, people like that, who are just, some of the best people in their field in the United Kingdom. These guys do some, even some confidential work that I probably shouldn't say here, that amazing stuff. So yeah, being able to work with those guys, learn from them, and also share with them, these have been some of the greatest experiences in my life. And to be honest, Bob, all I've been doing is really just serving in a ministry that I love, under a pastor that I'm deeply indebted to. Pastor Agu is just, you can't look for a better father, in the faith, So, these are some of the things that you just get your head down, do what you do, you just keep on doing it, and along the way, things happen. So some of the greatest opportunities I've had also have come as a result of Jesus' house, so yeah. The scripture that says Proverbs 22:29, seest thou a man diligent in his ways, he will not walk before mean men in the Bible, and they're sort of like
And I would like to add one to it, and this I got from my former boss, Oba Okwade the second. He used to tell us, today, Kabiyesi call you and say, Dele, you are a fantastic guy, you are very good. Then tomorrow we say you are an idiot. Then you say, Kabiyesi, but only yesterday you told me I'm fantastic. And a star is as good as its last performance. A star is good as last performance, meaning you must perform all the time to be a star. Don't say because you will be a star today.
Absolutely, but I will append something to that, Bob D. The ability to be a star or not at all, I always reference it back to God. The truth of the matter is that there are a lot of hidden meanings in statements like that. So, for example, to be a star, you've got to have opportunity. You've got to have the opportunity. Maybe in countries like our dear country, Nigeria, that opportunity isn't there. So when I look at my life, I realize that the privilege I've had is really by the grace of God, because there's nothing I've achieved that someone else couldn't have if they've had the opportunity. And that's why my passion comes from to see our country be a much better place by God's grace, so that every citizen is in a position where they can say that, and that the environment or the state of things doesn't inhibit people from being able to say that same statement. So it is a bit unfair if some people can say it because of their circumstances and some people cannot say it out of nothing that is their fault. It wouldn't be right. And so that's where the responsibility on us comes in. But it's all, as I said, and I this will be a theme throughout this by the grace of God. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. We will get to each part of the. But before then, you had the opportunity to use the word opportunity. So let's talk about opportunity. You have been very privileged to meet a lot of great leaders. But we will start with Pastor Enoch Adeboye. What was your experience meeting Daddy on?
Wow. So the General Overseer, Pastor Adeboye, is obviously a fantastic, role model, human being. If Pastor Agu is my father spiritually, then Pastor is my exactly, it will have to be. So I've had the privilege to meet him a number of times, and his lovely wife many times, and it's a great, the truth of the matter is that maybe many people see them from far, but working in the media team and part of the Festival of Life when he's in the UK, really, and that's opportunity right there, Bob D. If I wasn't serving in the capacity that I was serving, appointed to the positions I've been appointed to by the grace of God, then those opportunities just wouldn't have been there. And I couldn't be telling you now what my experience with meeting the general overseer have been. So, he's a great man. He's a one of the things that we hold very dearly about him is that he's just, his commitment to holiness is second to none. Well, I don't know if it's second to none. You can't really judge anyone, but the point is that he sets a great example, and he is one of those people that truthfully, we look up to as Christians, and meeting him for me, is really just a downtime. He's really down to earth. Public figures like himself, people have perspectives that they create in their minds as to who these people are. But, I've had the opportunity to come up close. And, I think he's just a very simple man who just does simple things and tries to serve his God and set examples for other people to follow. Yes, I had the privilege. The scripture that I shared, Proverbs 22:29, this is how it plays out. I've just been, by God's grace, diligent in doing what I've been doing. Doing that, being diligent, this is how I've had the opportunity to meet all these people. So the vice president at the time, vice president-elect, actually, Professor Osinbajo, had just been elected, and he was visiting Jesus' house, and I had the great honor of meeting him. We had a lovely conversation. He told me how my dad had been with him on the campaign to being elected for the first term. And so, it was a lovely opportunity to talk to him, and the nation would go and all that. And it was a privilege. Yeah.
I saw you with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. What were you discussing? Because I saw the way it was like he was whispering.
Yes. It was. Your voice is cutting out a little bit, Bob D, every so often. So I'm losing you a bit. So just in case there's anything you can do.
Oh, so they've been complaining about my microphone. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but every so often there's a bit of a gap. Well, that's okay. Yeah.
That's strange.
Yeah, I mean, your voice is loud and clear, but it's just that, and I'm a media person, so,
I think it's
you can imagine
back.
how this is. You can imagine how this is feeling.
Yeah, I think it's bouncing back. Can you hear it better now?
I can hear you clearly. Yeah, it's just that it cuts out every so often. Yeah.
Oh, that's strange.
So yeah, maybe yeah. So we'll go on. So yeah, Mr. Cameron was a special guest at a Festival of Life quite a few years back, and he was a speaker there briefly. And I had the honor of getting him ready, for his speech technically and preparing his equipment as the technical head of media at the event. Excuse me. So and we just kind of, it was a bit of banter or something, what are we going to do, how are we going to have it, and it was really, again, coming up close to the Prime Minister at that stage, it really was just an honor and a grace, that God gave, and we had fun, doing all this work, but even as I'm saying it now,
Theresa May, and I saw you with Boris Johnson. That must be quite some awesome experience.
It is, again, but, I will always refer to it. It's really just in the course of my duties serving God. Really, that's the honest truth. So Mrs. May, as Prime Minister, visited Jesus' house as well. And, at this stage, I was a pastor in the church. So, the pastors got there. And, and it was really good, to see her and to just have that moment with her. So, and all these things, it's really also down to the leadership of Pastor Ago. He's doing some fantastic things in the United Kingdom. Pastor's vision for prayer, across the United Kingdom is just so magnificent. This is a nation that is very dear to our hearts as a church. And we really want to, do our part in bringing the United Kingdom back to revival by God's grace. This is a nation that sent out missionaries all over the world. This is how Christianity got propagated across the planet, in many places that we know today. And the United Kingdom as a nation, it is our desire that it becomes great again, but Great Britain, in the God perspective. And so the core of our prayers as a church, we have a prayer for revival in every service, and all that is really just the vision the pastor has sold, that is about bringing the UK back. So all these things are what have created the opportunities to meet the greatest world leaders, of the country and all that, because we're Christians. We believe in the power of prayer. We believe in the ability to use prayer as an influence in the world, and in the course of that, God has been kind and created all these opportunities. Yeah.
Fantastic. So let's now travel to Cambridge.
Indeed.
So how did we get to Cambridge?
Wow. So yeah, Cambridge. I think I got to a point in my life where actually, I didn't say about Mr. Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Forgive me, but Boris Johnson, I actually met him when he was mayor of London. Actually, so he came to a carol service at Jesus House, and that was a great opportunity to just interview him. I spoke to him about his thoughts for London and what he wanted to achieve for London, especially from the Christian perspective. So that was really good, and he gave a very memorable, very funny sermon, and it was really a memorable time. But yeah, that aside, I'll continue to Cambridge. So Cambridge was at some point in my life, I realized that I wanted to for the organization, very fulfilled in that, but I was also sort of itching personally for what's next in life, what am I going to do, and so on. And I've always felt a leading towards being involved in leadership, governance, that sort of this degree, by the way. So I had the equivalent of having done a BSc and an MSc all at once. So I had done that, so I didn't actually have a second degree. So I wanted to do that as well. So Cambridge was that time, that opportunity to go back to school, but also it was a necessary time for me to sort of begin to see what's next in life. And I wanted to challenge myself, especially in the areas of leadership and management. And one of the things that was very important to me was that I did this at a place that really challenged me. And I went to a place that was really going to be competing with the best in the world. As a matter of fact, I didn't apply to any other school but the University of Cambridge. And by God's grace, I got into Cambridge this time, the Trinity time, third time. And I went on that journey of the executive MBA. And it was something that was very dear to me, and doing it in half measures. And so, that's how Cambridge came to be. Yeah.
So now tell us about your record at Cambridge. Wow. What you achieved at Cambridge.
So, what I achieved.
And as always very big, going to church and all that.
Yes. I mean, I was serving, but I have to be honest. I mean, there were a lot of fantastic people in my team who stepped up to help to take up slack, to allow me to study. My wife, absolute rock. At the time, Dara as well, going through school, Lida created a room for me to be able to study and to do things like that were necessary. There were other people who we love Dele who helped as well. Dara's kind of aunt, Auntie Lola, who also really helped. But all these people were great in creating the room that I needed to do this course. So Cambridge was it was a very intensive course. 18, 20 months, executive MBA, studying at the same time, traveling to Cambridge once every month, and basically doing all that alongside the rest of life, being a father, being a husband, being a father, and working as well, and so on. So it was quite tough. But again, if you hear me tell this story, it's important to know that it was made easier by the grace that God gave. So at the end of it, I was privileged to have a distinction, and this was awarded to the top 5% of the class, of which I believe there were 6 people who had a distinction out of a cohort that started of 126. And so, yeah, it was a great privilege to be able to have that. And then beyond the distinction, Poets and Quants, which is one of the leading business schools, online publications, did a feature and included me in the top 100 executive MBAs across the globe, 2020, class of 2020, and which is really a huge honor and something that I'm just grateful to God for. Yeah.
Wow! Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was so impressed, and I'm sure that your parents and your family will be very proud of your record.
Yeah, it's something, and I'm pleased to be able to say it. But the reason why I'm most pleased, Bob D, you might find this interesting about going to business school. In the first few weeks, from and work for Microsoft, Amazon, Google, great organizations across the planet, and I came, I was the only person that came from, not the only person from non-profit sector, but, and I was just very keen that my faith is very important to me. It's something that I hold very dearly. It's something I hope never to have to hide. That people persecuted all over the world for their faith, and sometimes, they can't openly, actively say I'm a Christian. But I thank God for the opportunity to be able to say that. But long story short, I was competing, not competing, but I was in class with all these people, and for me, it was important to also represent Christianity, to represent the faith, to represent God. And so when I look back and I think, oh, I got a distinction, I want it known, I want it said, that, this was, worked someone from, the religious organization. I don't know if anybody has ever been, on these sort of courses, from faith organizations and all that. But I want that, because I'm very proud, that Jesus has also
in the world.
Absolutely, in the world, So, you're going through it. You're going through all this list of people who have, fantastically intelligent people from all over the planet, and at some point you get there, and you see Jesus' house. and for me, that's one of the greatest privileges, to be able to represent my God, Jesus Christ, who I believe strongly in that manner. Yeah.
That's why they say God's time is the best.
God's time is indeed the best. Yeah.
You were going to Sokoto. You first went to Cotonou. That's what happened.
Indeed.
Well done.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Yeah.
You have really motivated me.
What
did I expect from you? Are you
house? I think Lady is just going to chase you out of the house. So, but this idea has been
can do it at your own pace.
Indeed. This idea has been talked about. It's been toiled with. Watch this space is what I will say.
So how can your dad have a PhD and you will not try to beat that record?
Simply because I'm not my dad. My dad is who he is.
But our prayer is that we want you to be greater than your dad.
Indeed, and maybe I can be greater than him in other things.
You owe us at least 2 PhDs now.
Bob D, if you are following somebody that is getting 132% in an exam, when 100% was enough, at some point you think, what, just go your way, I'll go my own way, So, taking extra credits and things like that. So the truth of the matter is I love my dad. He's a fantastic man. Like any human being, he's not perfect. I think Jesus makes us all better than we can ever hope to be. But the truth of the matter is that he has set certain records and legacies that I will always look up to. They will always challenge me. But there are a lot of other people, Bob D, that those things that his generation, have done that will encourage my daughter, their generation, and so on and so forth. These are all people who have this pedigree to aspire to. But I am focused on running the race that I've been called to run and doing for God what He wants me to do. My dad's generation as well included my uncle Shegun, who a lot of people would know from Unilag. Great engineer, mathematician there. He's passed on now. Extremely accomplished. You know the story. There's also Uncle Femi, my cousin Akinero, who lives not too far from here. His dad, who also passed, he passed very early. He went to MIT. Extremely accomplished engineer. Uncle Shegun was in Cornell. And people. He didn't want to wait a year, and so he was given a place, so he didn't go to Cambridge. I went to St. Andrews instead. So all these things are exciting achievements, but these were things that drove us, to say you can be the best. I'm an African growing up in Ibadan, and I'm thinking, yeah, I can be amongst the best in the world, but to actually achieve that could only have been by the grace of God. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. I think we've done extremely well. We've done beyond 1 hour. Now it's 1 hour, 25 minutes. So I want to thank you most sincerely, because we had to set this up at very short notice.
Very short indeed, yes.
I'll be delighted to have your closing words, and then we'll play a song, and then we'll call it a day.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bob D. Just to close,